Right. Welcome back, everybody, to the latest episode of the Beskar Bucket. I am here with, once again, for the third time, my friend Ken from not only the forces behind Star Wars, which you knew from the last two episodes we did, but also now the rambling Star Wars fan. Hence the for our video viewers, the banner at the bottom, rambling with the rambling Star Wars fan. So, how are you doing,
It's
Ken?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks to be back. I should change my name to just instead of Ken Bishop, just Ken again.
Ken again. Ken with two N's.
Yes, Ken then.
But, well, real quick, I know you and I were just talking about what to talk about, but I would like to talk about what we have coming up a week from yesterday, so in 6 days. So, you wanna explain what we did last night?
Yeah. So last night, some of the members of the unifying fandom, the Star Wars podcasting network, got together, and we recorded the first ever episode of the Georgie Awards. So it's our homage to the Oscars, the Emmys, the Golden Globes, all wrapped into one, with the main focus being Star Wars. So you were on it from the Beskar Bucket. Mike was on it as another representative of the Inflatable Falcon. Myself, Anthony, Dexter, and Steven were members of the Rad Batch, or the forces behind Star Wars. And I've got to say, I think it was one of the most fun and highly produced episodes that we've ever done. And I'm so excited to have everybody watch it and or listen to it next Tuesday when we release it for the masses on Star Wars Podcast Day.
Yeah, that was I know we talked about it a little bit last night after the show, but that was so much fun just to get together and like you said, it was extremely well produced. So I was just glad to get an invite.
And I really think that that episode could be the one where we get a comment from somebody. And I think we, the Rad Batch, would be foolish if we didn't hashtag the bejesus out of that show with mentions of Pedro and Daniel Logan and George Lucas and Matt Martin from the Story Group. Hashtag everybody just to see who's gonna watch a couple bits of our show and or comment on it.
Right. That do you have any idea how fun that would be to do that live in like an actual audience, in like an auditorium?
Oh well, it's funny that you say that, because that could very easily be something that we do at a convention. It doesn't necessarily have to be, although how cool would this be? Not necessarily England, because we're not as cool as Star Wars Geek Girl or the Hinton family to be able to be selected for the podcast stage this year.
Right.
But who's to say that we couldn't? Let's say the next Star Wars celebration is in Anaheim or Orlando or Chicago, that we gather together, and that's what we submit. We submit we do a live version of the Georgie Awards.
Yeah, that would be spectacular. Granted, they're gonna have to. We're gonna use all 6 of those tickets that they give out.
Really?
So, well, yeah, because I mean, even if we just go with last night's lineup between me, you, Mike, Anthony, Steven, and Dexter, that's all 6.
Well, is it per entity, or is it based on the, like, so for instance, we have you could say that we have 4 shows that come together for that one panel. So is it possible that they would grant us additional tickets because of the hosts and stuff like that?
I'm not sure, honestly. I think probably, but that also begs the question of, like, because I know we were talking about it a while ago, on if Reed Pop is even going to continue doing Celebration. So
Yeah.
who knows, if and when Disney takes control of that, if we actually, if they still do like the podcast stage.
Yeah.
And they don't hand select them.
Well, considering the number of shows now that they support in different ways or are involved with in different ways. So whether you're talking about, Father and Son Galaxy or Sky Talkers or Talking Bay 94 or some of the other shows that get selected for some of the roundtable conversations and interviews, who's to say that they don't pluck some of those folks and say, hey, we would love to have you come and so they seek them out rather than we the podcast creators applying or submitting for a spot at the table.
True, that's true.
And since last night, I already have at least 7 more ideas for our next Georgie Awards, including a fan favorite where we do a poll maybe 2 or 3 weeks leading up to the show and have the fans be able to vote on their version of the best, whatever that category is.
Right. Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm already excited for next year, to be honest with you. So I'm glad I'm not the only one looking 365 days in the future.
Yeah, I know I mentioned it last night when we were all kind of debriefing the whole event. I got goosebumpy and super excited just from the opening, just from the stuff that Steven put together for the opening. I'm like, this is brilliant and fancy, and it's our names up there. It was super cool.
Yeah, Anthony, after the show, Anthony had said that he was nervous, and I was like, God, I'm glad I'm not the only one who's nervous to present an award that we made up. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. I'm excited for next year when we get to do it again. So that was again, I'm incredibly honored that you guys even thought of me to have me on, let alone be able to be a presenter.
Well, if my memory serves me right, you're part of the reason that was even brought up as an idea. Wasn't it you and Mike that suggested an award show?
I won't take credit for that, because I think that was just kind of in passing when I was talking about doing like a year in review show.
Okay.
So I'll let Mike take the credit for that one. So.
And to think, a passing thought ended up being what it was, as big as it was, as fancy as it was. I mean, even as silly as this sounds, even having the consistent background images for our show, they all look so nice, lined up next to each other. I mean, it was cool. It was very, very cool.
Yeah, my only complaint about the whole night is Anthony picked the worst possible time to take a snippet of me for his promo picture, because I'm just sitting there just chewing on my lip.
It's funny that you say that, because one of the suggestions I had in my head for next year's episode, next year's award ceremony, is that we actually, as silly as it sounds, we pose for that beforehand, or as part of it. Like, okay, everybody, on the count of 10, this is we're gonna snap that shot of all of us.
Yeah, that the only complaint about the whole night. Everything else, fantastic. I was so happy to be a part of it.
And I probably should say this out loud to you. One of the awards that I was tasked with delivering was Best Show of 2022, and I'm not going to spoil it by letting anyone know what was selected for that. But I do want to let you know that I had in my speaker's notes that was going to be the category that you sponsored. So we had the best dramatic moment, that was from the Inflatable Falcon. We had the best villain from the Rambling Star Wars Fan, and I was going to say best show, sponsored by the Beskar Bucket.
No, I think the what was the last one that I put on? A best supporting character. I think that's more fitting for the Beskar Bucket. I think that was the right one.
Okay.
So
fair enough.
Because this is by far not the best show. I think the forces behind Star Wars and the Inflatable Falcon and the Rambling Star Wars Fan are miles away from where I'm at.
See, I don't know about that. If we're comparing Rambling Star Wars Fan to the Beskar Bucket, I mean, even that second episode, which you could almost say is really the first full episode, I only managed to squeak out like 20 or 30 minutes where you've been able to sit down and talk to yourself for an hour or so. So I still think that the rambling Star Wars fan is behind you in line. So
I don't think so. I think you put on a much better show. But as opposed to arguing semantics, let's call it a draw then.
all right, fair
Fair
enough.
is fair.
Even Steven.
But yeah, I think it's so amazing that we can all come together and we all have our own separate shows, but I think when we all get together, I think it's some of the best stuff that we can put out.
Yeah, and just everybody brought something last night. It was truly a wonderful team effort. Whether it's you look at Steven as the host and all of the little things that he put together for that show, and one of the other ideas I have for next year is that we also film some of those little clips that we send over to Steve to put into that montage, or even pepper them throughout. I think it would elevate the game, and we managed to squeak our episode in within like a 2-hour mark, almost to the second. So I can imagine the next time we do the Georgie Awards that it could be a 2.5 hour, 3-hour event.
Yeah, I think we were trying to keep it down, like make sure everyone's on the right track. We're not veering too far off. But I think if we open it up a little bit, yeah, we could definitely get at least 2.5 hours. So I think if we go into it with the mindset of more like, hey, let's make this just a conversation, as opposed to, hey, let's keep this 5 minutes after every award and then go from there.
Well, also, I mean, if we really want to get fancy and jazzy, we could turn it into a combination award show / variety hour. Where we just like some of the award shows that involve singers or whatever. They've got some awards and then they've got a performance.
Mm-hmm.
Some awards and they've got another performance. So
yeah, the other thing is I totally forgot about it. We need to make sure we're marketing this properly. We need to make sure we're getting our commercials in. We need the sponsorships.
yes, absolutely.
So Mike understood the assignment. The rest of us were a little lacking.
The best I could do was mentioning it in the category announcements. That was the closest I could get. So like you said, we have 365 or so days to do that.
Make sure we're, because I mean, like, and the other thing is, like, we joke about it, but like we could use that for other purposes.
Yeah, you bet.
So,
what they managed to put together for Star Wars Geek Girls was perfect.
Right. Yeah. So hey, we've got a whole year to think about. Like, all right, what can we do to make this better? It was already really good, but we need to take that next step into even better.
Yeah, and speaking of Star Wars Podcast Day, what do you think the three of us should do for the Inflatable Falcon? Because I know even though Star Wars Podcast Day is February 7th, Daniel has said, the gentleman who kind of organized us for this year, has said that he's fine with us releasing things beyond the 7th if we all can't drop something on that date.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you have in mind that we could do special for the Inflatable Falcon, for Star Wars Podcast Day?
I mean, I know we do it a lot already. However, I think we should have a costume themed episode, because from the very beginning, since the time that we all met, costuming has been the one thread that we've all been able to connect to each other. So I think if we do like a deep dive into like either the 501st and the Mando Mercs, or like a deep dive into some of the costumes like we're looking into, like we all either have or are in the process of making a Din Djarin costume, especially with the Mandalorian season 3 coming, I feel like that would be a good idea. But I think if we're trying to make like an evergreen episode, I really think costuming would be the biggest identity that we have to kind of lean on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm wondering if in the short term, if it would be possible to snatch up one or two other people from the Mando Mercs that we might know who would be willing to come on as guests to speak specifically about. I mean, I am an official member of it, and because I'm a host, I don't count myself as that special. But if we could get one or two other people from the Mercs, we could have Zoe come on. She's an official Mando Merc. There are a number of people that we know, whether it's Ned, who we have a fairly strong relationship with, or some of the other folks who could just hop on with us for 30 minutes of our show to talk about what it's like to be in that official group.
Yeah, and I'm sure I can ask someone from the Ohio Garrison to hop on as well.
Yeah, and they wouldn't have to stay on the full 6 hours with us. I mean, we could do a section of just 20-30 minutes, talking about Mando costumes specifically, and then
true,
they could hop off, and then we carry on the conversation.
Yeah, actually, I have one person in the Rancor clan that I know, so I could see if he'd be willing to jump on as well.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So, yeah, I think like I said, I think costuming would be a great evergreen episode to just that way, because I think we were talking about it last week, but like that way it's more of a commercial for us in what we harp on a lot, and I think costuming is the number one thing that we talk about the most. If it's not vegan recipes.
Or auto repair. I mean, we can't skip out on the occasional auto repair conversation.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know what you think about that, but that would be my idea.
Well, I think it'd be fantastic, and to your point, season 3 of Mando is right around the corner, and so by having that specific focus, it could carry us through all the different bits of our show, whether we're talking about troop time, we're talking about podcast time, or even costume corner. Absolutely. And troop time could be broadened out beyond just what recent troops that we've been involved in, and this could bring our guest into the conversation. What are some memorable moments that you've had while trooping? Mm-hmm. Because in some ways, trooping can sound pretty damn boring. I mean, so let me make sure I get this right. You're a grown human who has a job and pays taxes, and you'll stand around dressed in plastic pieces, pretending to be a bounty hunter from outer space, and that's it. That's what you do. Yeah, and there's so much more to it than that.
Yeah, and I think that's a thing that often gets overlooked is the other nuances to it. But I won't. I don't want to dive too deep into this.
But yeah, I think it's a fantastic idea, and it wouldn't require lots of prepping. Like we don't need a Stephen Pershing opening.
Right.
Although I would recommend figuring out a way of either incorporating the Mando soundtrack a little bit into it, or the Book of Boba Fett one into it a little bit, just because it's such great music on both of those ends.
Yeah. Now the one with or without lyrics.
Well, we could wrap up the episode with the lyrics, just like the Book of Boba Fett. Just and as long as none of us are requested or required to sing any of it.
Right. God, the people listening to this before the 7th are going to be like, what in the hell are they talking about?
Well, this is what happens when you get the Rambler on. I mean,
that's
go on and on and on. And we've already been 19 minutes into the show, and we're still in the introduction of it.
Right. But well, speaking of which, let's move into the Bad Batch. So obviously, today's episode was Tribes. For spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it, we're gonna get pretty deep into spoiler territory. I'll give you a 5, 4, 3, 2. So this is the episode where they rescue Gunji. So
no hesitation there.
No, not at all. I mean, I think in the first 3 minutes is, we're already diving right into the Gunji storyline. Like there was no beating around the bush on this one.
Well, and it wasn't. I thought Gunji was in the trailers. I thought as well.
Oh yeah.
So we knew at some point that they were gonna, have the Wookiee Jedi there.
Right. Yeah. So I guess not too much of a spoiler, so to speak, because you knew he was going to be there at some point. But I don't know. Better safe than sorry is the way I like to roll. But overall, what were you? Give me your thoughts on this week's episode.
So overall, I thought it was fantastic. I continue to be impressed by the animation. I think it's absolutely positively gorgeous. It's remarkable to think about where it is versus where it started. So when you go back to the original Clone Wars back in the mid to late 2000, was it 2008? I think it came out originally or whatever.
Yeah.
And that hyper marionettation kind of animation style has just advanced leaps and bounds to where now there are moments where you pause it and it's just gorgeous to look at. Fantastic. And each episode has its own feel, its own flavor. The environments are different. The lighting is different. The coloring is different. And the soundtrack is absolutely fantastic as well. I mean, Kevin Kiner. Hold on one second. I apologize.
No worries. Well, that being said, I loved this week's episode. So I will... Oh, looks like he's back. Good.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Kiner did continues to do a great job with the music, and the stories are just wonderful too. You'd think how much can they really do in Star Wars, and my answer is never enough. Like there's truly no end to what they can put on screen for us to enjoy. What are your general overall thoughts of it?
I loved this week's episode. I mean, it was fun. I guess really at the heart of the Bad Batch, that's what you're looking for. Like, especially when it comes to like the animated shows, I'm never looking for like super deep, super heavy emotion 100% of the time. Like, yeah, I love the episodes like the 2-part season finale from last season. Some of my favorite animated episodes. But like when it comes to like when I watch the Clone Wars or I watch the Bad Batch, I love the I don't want to say like the filler episodes or like the offshoots, but just the one-off adventures. So much fun.
Well, and to that end, I mean, when you think back to the original 1977 movie, George dropped you right in the middle of something. It wasn't as if, oh, we're going to go on this journey, so let's pack our bags and we're going to head to this place. No, with that opening crawl, he just dropped you right into the mix. And they do that with each of these animated shows, even though some of them may, from episode to episode may have a continuous arc. But there still is that moment where this is fresh, this is new, we're going to put you into it, and you have to figure it out as it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you mentioned the word filler. I don't think any of them are ever filler. We don't know the true value, the true depth, the true connections to these episodes until we get an opportunity to see them all.
Right.
As silly as that may sound, because if we look at this episode in particular, where they rescue this Jedi who happens to be a Wookiee. Yeah, there are connections way back to the Clone Wars with Gunji. Connections to Ahsoka, connections to Hondo, and so on. So even though some folks may find this to be a filler episode or fluff, I think they're all fantastic and meaningful. We just have to be patient enough to be willing to look at where they connect. Some of it may connect to things we've already seen. Some of it may be preparing us for things that are yet to come.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I don't think anything is ever really filler. Because if it were just filler, they wouldn't make it. So everything has a purpose, even if it's not to like the greater story. Like I don't think that it's ever going to come back where, I don't think it's going to be brought up about the pod racing, or not. I guess not pod racing. What did they call it?
Oh, the speeders from last the 2 episodes ago.
Yeah, I don't foresee that being like that specific plot thread being brought up again, but like, it has deeper implications. Like, what did I forget his name, the main antagonist of that episode, what does he mean by like Sid's lying to you, or what have you? There's always small bits in the episode that connect to the bigger story, but just because the entire episode isn't super meaningful to the overarching story doesn't just make it filler.
Yeah, and also there are some moments where I think they're using the episode as an opportunity to try stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's to try out sound, it's to try out vehicles, to try out whatever you may be thinking. It's more than just what's on the screen. So yeah, some people, like I said, some people may call it filler, and you won't hear that phrase from me. Like, this was just another meaningless episode. I mean, this is an animated show, so they've had to put a ton of time, effort, energy into these things, and nothing shows up on screen accidentally.
Right. Yeah, I only use the word filler for lack of a better term. However, whenever anyone, goes on about, oh, this was just a filler episode, I always look back at episode 2 of season 2 of The Mandalorian. Everyone, it was a good episode. It wasn't my favorite, but it was a good episode. Everyone at the time was like, oh, this is a filler episode, blah, 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 blah. Just because, like, it had no immediate impact on the larger story. But yet, when you wait and watch the whole season unfold, you have I forget his name, the guy who was with Dave Filoni, the other X-Wing pilot.
Oh, I know, the guy who ends up being one of the Rangers.
Right. So he comes in, he recruits Cara Dune. Cara Dune becomes a Marshal of the New Republic.
That's what it's, Marshal, not Ranger.
And then Cara Dune helps Spring Mayfeld. Mayfeld helps Mando get the coordinates from Moff Gideon's ship. Helps Mando get Grogu back. So, just because, the story of the episode didn't connect to the larger story, when you watch everything unfold, everything has a purpose. They're not spending millions of dollars to make these episodes for nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. I a million times agree. And I think, to this idea, I know I mentioned, I apologize if I sound like I'm repeating myself. It's you gotta be patient and be willing to let it all come together. I mean, let's if we were to jump from the Bad Batch to Mando to Andor, how many folks did you chat with who, for the first 2 episodes that they put out there, going, I'm not sure if I'm gonna like this show.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we get to the 12th episode, people are like, oh my god, this is the best Star Wars ever, and I can't believe I doubted it. And like, just be patient. And I'm not saying that you have to enjoy everything about it, or enjoy every episode or every movie or every animated thing. I'm just saying, be patient and be willing to see it all, with the understanding that it's impossible to see it all, because they may be connecting to something that's coming, whether it's 3 episodes later or a year later, or they may be connecting to stuff from 5 years ago that you didn't watch for whatever reason.
Right. And I am on record as saying this, but I also, to jump from Bad Batch to Mando to Andor to Obi-Wan, I was in the same camp where after the first 2 episodes, I was like, I have thoughts. But I am on record, because I remember us talking about it. I was like, I don't know how to feel about the first 2 episodes, but I'm gonna wait and see how this plays out. And it turns out, and I talked about this on the Georgies last night, blah blah blah. Go listen to the Georgies when it comes out, and you'll get my full thoughts on that. So, it is to not spoil anything. But yeah, I love what they're doing with the Bad Batch. I think it's some of the best animation that they've put out for Star Wars, if not just flat out some of the best television they've put out.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be like the other stuff. It doesn't have to have the same tone. It doesn't have to have the same pacing. It doesn't have to have, and you mentioned it a little bit ago, the same weight. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be either intellectually heavy or emotionally heavy to be meaningful, to be entertaining, to be interesting. And I think for ours, the three of us, and also I'll extend it out to the other members of the Rad Batch, one of the things I really enjoy when we get together is we are willing and able to pause long enough to hear what other folks think and how they saw it, because their version of it, their view of it is slightly different than ours, and we may pick up something that we didn't pick up before.
Mm-hmm.
So did you see this thing that was in the corner there, or did you hear when this character said such and such that connected to, episode 5 of season 3 of the Clone Wars or whatever?
Right. Yeah, and I mean, look no further than Andor and in Luthen's shop. I mean, I missed the rocks from Temple of Doom the first time I watched it. I missed the Mandalorian armor, even though that was front and center. I shouldn't have missed that one. So, yeah, sometimes it's all about perspective.
Well, and I think one of the things that's interesting about the shows that we're getting now, because we're getting them so frequently, I think it has changed how we interact with Star Wars to a certain degree. So if we look back at how things used to be released, you would get a movie, and then several years in between where you would get another movie, and there might be books or something in between, but not much.
Yeah.
We've been getting so much Star Wars so frequently now that we don't necessarily take the time to go back and rewatch it, to go back and review it, to go back and talk about it as much, because we got the next thing coming.
Right.
Even, this year alone, the Bad Batch will still be going on when season 3 of Mando drops.
Mm-hmm.
And then shortly after that, we're going to have Star Wars Celebration and, the Ahsoka show. And I think this year is also season 2 of Visions, I thought. Or is that, I can't remember if it's this year or next year.
I think it's fall of this year, somewhere in the September. I know it came out in September of 2021.
Okay.
So I would assume they're gonna follow the same kind of release schedule.
Yeah. Plus, if you want to read any of the books, and I don't even mean just the novels or the comics. I mean, they've got some great art of books that are coming. The 100 objects that's coming, where it's 100 objects, props from the movies and shows that they go into great detail describing and explaining and so on. So it's possible to have your entire entertainment buffet being just Star Wars.
Right. Which, I mean, at this point, that's Star Wars and Futurama. For those who know me, know that's what makes up mine. So,
and even though it's possible, you could have Star Wars on the big screen and Futurama on your tablet or your phone. It's nearly impossible to effectively and efficiently watch both at the same time. So
right.
Every minute you spend watching one thing is a minute you're not spending watching or talking about something else.
Right.
I mean, I've only seen the Obi-Wan Kenobi show in its entirety once. Some of the episodes I watched more than once. I'm not actually that season I did watch twice, because I'd watch it once in the morning by myself, and then I'd watch it later with Heather. But for me, watching something only twice is very unusual. I think I've watched The Last Jedi at least 60 times if I had to put a number on it.
Yeah, God, don't even ask me how many times I've seen Revenge of the Sith. I can tell you it's more than the copies I have. But yeah, no, I think I'm in the same boat. Like Mando season 1 and season 2, I've seen probably a dozen times in its entirety. But the Bad Batch season 1 I've only seen once. Andor I've only seen once, and I think Obi-Wan I've only seen 2 or 3 times in its entirety.
And they're deep. I mean, the Andor is one of those things for me, from my perspective. You have to watch it. You have to listen to it, because any other distraction takes you away from something. You're either missing a mannerism of somebody when something is said, or you miss the words that are uttered. And it's such a rich and deep show that you want to be paying as much attention as you can without being distracted by conversations or texting or whatever. It's front and center.
Right. Yeah, luckily I I can't say the same with the animated shows, but with the live action shows, I always make sure before I go to work, that's the first thing I do. It's always watch the new episode of whatever has come out.
Yeah, lately I've still had the same rhythm that I've had, for the last few shows, where I'll get up around 3:30 or so, watch the episode in the dark with the subtitles on, so I don't wake up anybody else in the house, and then go on with my day. And then sometimes I'll watch it again with Heather that night or the next day. But to get back to this episode, one of the things that really jumped out at me about it, and we're still in that spoilery territory, was Omega. One of the things that I picked up on is it seems like each episode of this season, Omega is mimicking a different character from each episode. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see at what point does she either start taking the things that she's mimicked and make them part of her own, or that she mimics the wrong person. She mimics the person that isn't, kind, helpful, or whatever. It's very much like children. Children will pick up things, they'll pick up habits, even to the point of, kids will repeat words that their parents say, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise. Oftentimes even though the phrasing is perfect, it's not necessarily the best thing for them to say. I mean, so I have two stepsons, and I can remember when we were out walking the dog, and the youngest one maybe was 6 or 7, and we were walking the dog, and the one dog pulled really hard, and he just said, "Oh shit!" And I mean, it was perfectly placed. It was appropriate for the situation. It's something that I probably would have said, but to have it come out of his mouth, I just stopped there and said, "What did you say?" He's like, "Oh shoot!" I'm like, "No, that's not real. You're close, but that's not the real words." And then we got in the house, and I had that little moment where, "Hey, can you tell your mom what you just said out in the backyard?" And he got all sorts of, and I couldn't get super mad at him, because if that had happened to me, and I was probably the one that taught him that without realizing it. But yeah, they pick up those things. So I'm wondering when we're going to see her pick up those things and then do it or say it or use it at a later moment.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting. Like, I have 2 thoughts on this. So you realize that she has been on Camino her entire life thus far, and she doesn't know how to operate outside of that very controlled environment, where it's these. I mean, she was around the exact same person every single day of her life. Be that, yes, the clones had their own personality, but you see the same face every single day on every single person you interact with. And you have Lama Su that you also interact with. Or is it Lama Se or Lama Su?
think it's Lama Sue.
Either
I
way.
could be wrong.
But yeah, so she doesn't know how, people who aren't clones or aren't Kaminoans operate. So she doesn't know what she's doing, and like you said, it's like she is a child. She's just observing the adults around her to see how to act.
Well, and if you look at those adults that she was around, you've got Lama Sue, who was a scientist salesperson. So creating these clones and training these clones and selling these clones to governments and trade federations and so on. And then on the other side of it, she's surrounded by her brethren, her brothers, who she knows she's related to, and they're training to be soldiers. So they're trained to follow orders, they're trained to work in formations, they're trained in using weapons with the intention of harming them, harming other people. So those are the role models that she has had, and now she still has those role models who they themselves are struggling with their training, struggling with the things that they've done over the course of their life. And from episode to episode, Omega's introduced to other people who aren't her brothers, who aren't her parental figures, and she has not attached themselves to them, but she has found moments where she can mimic them, even to the point where she was mimicking Gunji, the Wookiee Jedi in this episode, right near the end, where she was doing same physicality, the same body posture, and I don't know if it's the same intention because they don't explain it fully. You just see it.
Mm-hmm.
She did that with Fee. She did that with I think it might have been Sid in one of the episodes.
Yeah.
So we see her picking up all these little things along the way.
Right. And it was Nala Se, by the way. That was the Kaminoan. So Lama Su was the prime minister. Nala Se was the scientist. I that's why I was crossed on which one is it. So.
And I was also twisted right along with you.
But yeah, and I kind of attest that towards look at Ezra in I think it was the 3rd season of Star Wars Rebels, where he was on Lothal, and he had only been around the his people on Lothal, and then with the Spectre crew, the Ghost crew, and then when Maul was brought in the picture, he saw this powerful force wielder. He's like, oh, maybe I should listen to this guy, and you kind of see that play out. So I think two sides of the same coin there when it comes to that.
Well, and I mean, you could stretch it all the way back to George's original movies. He spent a lot of time showing those growth moments with his characters, whether you're talking about the growth of Luke or the growth of Anakin and Padme. He I know he has said this a number of times, that he made these movies for kids, and Dave Filoni, the apprentice, who is now the master, learned from George.
Mm-hmm.
And has picked up that torch and is carrying it forward with these shows, specifically this one right now. I'm very interested to see what he's going to do with Ahsoka, because Ahsoka is for lack of better words, his and George's baby.
Right.
They created her. It wasn't well liked at the beginning, and she has grown to be an incredible fan favorite.
Yeah, I think arguably top 3 character from a fan perspective would not be that much of a reach. But yeah.
And what's different, I think, about Ahsoka that we haven't had with some of the other characters is we haven't seen yet that dip towards the dark.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's Anakin or the Bad Batch or even Luke himself that we saw in Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back. that leaning towards, or that dipping his toe into the dark side of things. We haven't seen any of that with Ahsoka, with the exception maybe if you were to talk about the Mortis arc from Clone Wars, where she was under the control of was it the Sun, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might have been the closest to going towards the dark side that Ahsoka ever had.
Right. Yeah, without veering too far off the beaten path, I'm very excited for Ahsoka, because I think while Clone Wars seemed like her show, there was too much going on for it to be fully considered her show. I think it is long overdue that she gets the spotlight.
Yeah, because even in that show, she had arcs where she was front and center, and then they would switch it to Kenobi or Anakin or some of the other characters. But this is going to be her show, and it'll be also interesting, I think, to see who else pops up, because one of the things we've come to see in the last few named shows, even though there's a focal point, whether it's Andor, Book of Boba Fett, there are other people that make their way, that make their way in. These galaxies are big, and there's lots of characters and creatures and aliens that have the ability to show up and be impactful.
Right. Yeah. I think overall, I'm excited for everything that we are currently getting and what we're going to be getting for the rest of this year. I think, we talked about it last night on the Georgies that, 2022 is probably the best year for Star Wars that we've gotten in a while. I think 2023 is going to blow it out of the water.
Yeah. we're just now at the second month of it.
Right.
So we talked a little bit about Omega and some of the things that she's experienced so far in this season. What are your thoughts on the development and the experiences of the Bad Batch members other than Omega?
I mean, and this is going to sound bad, I haven't really noticed any key differences in anyone other than Omega. I mean, everyone seems like they've kind of stayed pretty close to the same as what they were in season 1. Hunter still is the protective dad type. Wrecker is still the I'm gonna blow everything up. Echo is the reserved, odd man out, and Tech is Tech. So I haven't really seen any. I'm gonna say I haven't seen any character development, but I think they're staying pretty true to what their character arcs in season 1 were.
Well, I think they're staying true to them. However, I would say that there have been moments where, as tight as they are, that there are moments where there's the seeds planted for the possibility of them diverging. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned Hunter. Hunter as that father figure, which is so incredible to think about, that these folks were, raised at the same time, got the same training, experienced many similar things together, yet have different aspirations, have different destinations that they want to go towards. And Hunter seems to be the one who wants to be the father. He wants to get away from soldiering. He wants to have a real life with Omega as the child, mm-hmm. even though they're brother and sister. And then you have Echo, who's a regular clone, a normal clone, if you will. And he's talking about helping in different ways. Fighting, sort of, but not necessarily from the vantage point of warfare for warfare's sake. Mm-hmm. Whether it's rescue or finding and being involved that way. But I think there's going to come a moment in time and where those two things are going to get further apart, where Hunter's going to want to take a bigger step away, and Echo's going to want to take a bigger step towards still being on that side of doing good for as many people as possible.
Mhm.
And so I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
Right. Yeah, I see where you're coming from with that. However, I did want to touch on your comment about Hunter, though. I think that the fact that he naturally kind of gravitates towards being that father figure comes from being the leader of, the Bad Batch. So I think that was naturally already in him because he's been leading the Bad Batch for so long, and that's it's kind of the same vein where it's like, okay, I've been the one to call the shots and to keep the rest of my squad out of trouble and out of harm's way. It's kind of the same thing if you think about it. He's calling the shots to keep Omega safe. So, I think that's kind of where that comes from. I mean, please tell me if I'm wrong.
Oh no, you're absolutely right. I'm just thinking that the destination is different, meaning he wants to keep Omega safe by not fighting, by not being actively involved in conflict.
Right.
Whereas Echo is saying, we have skills, we have the ability to do things that involve conflict. So instead of avoiding the conflict, instead of steering clear of it, we need to step up and step in because we're better suited to be in the conflict and be successful in the conflict. Where I think Hunter now, where before he was making decisions to keep everybody safe, now the decision is to keep everybody safe by not engaging.
Right.
I think that's where the difference is. And before, when Hunter was making those decisions, yes, he was keeping his squad safe and was making efforts to keep the larger world safe, which is where Echo still is. But now Hunter is getting smaller in that focus, and so I want to keep my family safe. I want to keep the Bad Batch safe and Omega, even though Omega's not a soldier, even though she has not been trained to do all of the things that the Bad Batch has done and been able to do.
Right.
A lot like Cut. When Cut made the decision, you know what, I'm not fighting anymore. I'm gonna go and live in this backwater planet and raise crops and adopted children and all of that kind of stuff, even to the point where it doesn't even show up in armor anymore. He's dressed like Ajax Citizen. Whereas the Bad Batch still has their gear, and they'll put it on just because it's Tuesday and they got to go down and get some Mantel mix from around the corner.
Right. Well, how are you? I mean, not to totally invalidate everything you just said, but you do at least see them out of the armor, like around Sid's cantina.
Oh yeah.
So,
but the armor is very, very rarely far.
Right.
And it's not put up. It's one thing to have the armor and tuck it in a box like Gregor did. It's another thing altogether where it's like, you know what? I'm not even gonna keep it anymore. I'm just gonna be that citizen. So the Bad Batch still has it close by and will wear it, much more regularly. Which one of the things I do think is really, really funny. These folks are, this group of soldiers who are on the run, sort of, still keep their armor. They change the color of it, but they're still very, very distinctly, the Bad Batch. It's not like they can be, confused for, anybody else.
Right. It's not like they switched out the armor completely. They're still wearing the same clone armor.
Yep.
Because I think their armor was inspired by the Republic Commandos.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And they still go by their clone names. They not the numerical designation, but I mean when Tech was in that race the other day, and we have Tech. Really, Tech?
Just Tech? All right.
Yeah. They don't use aliases. They don't.
Nope.
Still Hunter.
Well, and I mean, to kind of tie that back to the episode before that, the Empire doesn't recognize them by their names. They recognize them by their numbers. So, I mean, is there really a harm in using their clone names, so to speak? If the people who are hunting you don't even recognize you as the as their clone names.
Well, I think the recognition of them by their clone names isn't so much as they don't know it.
Right.
I think it's a choice to remind them of who has power over them or who has ownership of them. So I'm gonna call you, CT 5555 or whatever, because that's the number we gave you. Just like with the First Order, and they snatched up the kids and made them into soldiers. They had names when they were born, and the Empire knew what those names were. However, they gave them numerical designations. You were so unimportant to me that I'm not going to respect that individual name that you've chosen or been given, and you're just going to get this series of numbers because we control you, we own you, we have power over you.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. I think with the galaxy being so vast, I don't think that it's such an issue, especially if they're, in the Outer Rim, where the Empire really has no jurisdiction.
Well, it's kind of like that scene in Jurassic Park where you've got the guy with glasses sitting at the cafe and on East Lanuba's like, hey everybody, look, we've got such and such here. Nobody cares. It's kind of like that. So it's more a matter of funny than anything else.
Mm.
And I'm also curious, we haven't seen anything yet in season 2. You mentioned Nala Se earlier. We've had no display of or connection to where season 1 ended with the Kaminoans, other than the one Kaminoan was murdered by the Empire, and Nala Se was moved to that mountain fortress.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think that's going to come up towards the end of the season, when they're in their 2-part finale, which I think we're getting both episodes at the same time, aren't we?
Yeah, so there's the first 2 episodes were combined. There was going to be a chunk of individual episodes, a mid-season set of episodes combined, and that's got to be coming up soon. And then the finale is 2 episodes released on the same day.
Right. I think it's episode 9 and 10 are the 2 that are I think that those are the 2 that are getting released together in the mid-season.
And then this is a 16-episode season, right?
Yes, it is. Let's see. Bad Batch season 2 release schedule. Okay. Or no, next week we are getting 2 episodes.
Oh, excellent.
It is the Clone Conspiracy and Truth and Consequences. So we might actually be getting that sooner rather than later. So yeah, we might be getting more answers next week. But yeah, it looks like everything else up until episode 15 and 16 are weekly. So yeah.
And not to sound greedy, I do hope for more. I do hope for more of the Bad Batch beyond this season.
Oh yeah, 100% I agree. I don't think that they're gonna... I think with the demand for more episodes of the Clone Wars, I think that we will definitely get more of the Bad Batch. Because with the Clone Wars, you had a finite amount of time in the overarching timeline that you could use, and they ran out of stock real quick. But with the Bad Batch, I mean, you've got 18 years worth of time that you can use, So I think that there was enough of an uproar for more Clone Wars that they will, as long as people are watching, I think they'll be making the Bad Batch. So I don't think this is one they're going to cap at a certain amount of seasons.
Well, and even if they don't carry on with stories of the clones in this animation style, I think it would be fantastic if they continued with this animation style and did stories about other characters within this time.
Mm-hmm.
So I know during the Georgies we had mentioned Tales of the Jedi, where it was 6 small episodes about 2 characters with some overlapping situations and how those characters move through the space. I think that's a great idea for additional shows. They don't have to be full on 30-minute, hour episodes, but they could carry that on into other chunks, other characters. I mean, we now have learned about another Jedi who has survived the Purge.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible that they could take this animation style and incorporate Cal Kestis?
Right.
Or who pick name a character and film it. Could they do animated Lando and Solo?
Right. Yeah, I mean, you had mentioned, oh, there's Mike. Well, look who it is. We have a surprise guest.
It's so good to see you.
Hey guys. Sorry, it was like a super long day.
It's okay.
Yeah, we're talking about the Bad Batch. Are you caught up?
I did just watch that. So, I was eating crappy dinner, so I did watch the Bad Batch. So.
We were just mentioning how we'd like to see this animation style continue beyond the Bad Batch if possible.
Oh, definitely.
What were your overall thoughts?
Oh, it actually went longer with Gunji than I thought it would.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to rescue him and just return him. I didn't think it was going to go as much as it did. So that was really cool. Got to see tanks from. I mean, it was just really was a good episode. Though the stones, we don't know what they were. Oh, sorry. I don't know what. I reset everything up for last night. Still an echo? Let me turn down my headphones a second.
Let's try that again. Yeah, I think it's still a bit of an echo.
Yeah.
How about now?
Let's
Maybe.
see.
Nope.
Okay. It's just I have an earbud in, so I probably have it turned up too loud. So. All right. Yeah, I just thought it was really good. I mean, the Trandoshans and everything. It's just really good.
And one of the things that we were saying earlier is I think we messed up because we were thinking that Gunji was going to be in a different episode under a different title. I didn't expect Gunji to be in this episode.
Yeah, no, yeah. I was slightly spoiled because I saw someone put a spoiler-free review, but they used a picture of Gunji. Oh.
Yeah, that was my reminder to watch this week's episode.
Yeah,
I was scrolling through Instagram and the official Star Wars page posted a picture of Gunji.
Ah.
I was like, oh, cool! It's gonna be the Gunji episode. All right, let's go.
No, it was good. Yeah.
What did you think of Omega mimicking Gunji at the end of the episode?
I think she's just trying to show off. I think she just didn't know what to do. She's like, no. I think she does have some sort of force something. But I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, again, she's a kid that never got to be a kid, and he's a kid that never got to be a kid. Whether you agree with the Jedi or not, they stole children's childhood,
Right. Yeah, we were talking about it, how my point was, she's never been outside of Camino, and I used Ezra as an example too. But even Gunji, like you said, they were stuck in their own bubble, so to speak. So they're trying to mimic how to interact with other cultures and other people. Gunji picked it up obviously because he's from Kashyyyk, but like Ken was saying earlier was like how she was mimicking Fee and wanting to be like a pirate or I'm sorry, what was the term that Fee used?
Liberator of ancient artifacts or something like that.
Ah, yes. So,
which I can imagine Indiana Jones using that same phrase.
100%. But yeah, so she's just trying to see how other people operate and sort of blend in, so to speak.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm recovering from last night still. That was tiring.
Yeah.
Well, we spent the first 20 minutes of the episode talking about last night. So for those of you that are listening, we're going to go back for a little bit just so that Mike can get in on the conversation. Without spoiling the Georgies, what was your impression of our get together?
Oh, I think it showed the power of planning. As much as I like the impromptu, that 2-hour podcast in some ways is like 15 hours of just free talking in some ways. I mean, there's still a place for both, so I'm not knocking one or the other, but it just shows the power of just some forethought and a little bit of planning and just an excitement that just all went together to me. I'm just proud to be a part of a small part of that,
Well, we were trying to figure out who to blame for that because I was under the assumption it was the two of you mentioning the idea of an award show.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I mentioned it, and then he ran with it. Because Zoe did one. I was trying to look up the episode. They did one probably 5 or 6 years ago, but it was just like off the cuff award show. But I just think that's one of those things where I'm looking forward to next year's.
That seems to be
You
the
must have
common
been
theme.
eavesdropping on us.
Well, because it's a throwback and it's something new at the same time. Like, everyone makes fun of award shows, but we all know what an award show's like. Like, everyone says they don't watch them, but then everyone talks about them, so they do. It's just like that weird. It's that weird thing that's like almost like truly American.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we already have, John and I are already mentioning ideas to add to next year to the point where it might be 3.5 hours instead of 2 hours.
Well, it's gotten me rethinking our comedy episode.
Jesus.
Because I'm like, okay, we got to step it up. We got to step it up for that one.
Well, we can't make that a 2-hour episode. I don't have that many bad jokes.
No, but I'm thinking that's one that we record and we polish it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking, well, we should do it, and I'm thinking, well, is that something we work on and put out on May 4th? Like, put the time and effort, like, because I've been watching stand-ups on TikTok and Amazon Prime and Netflix. I'm like, okay, which one of these styles do I want to personify? And then I'm like listening to jokes. I'm like, okay, how can I convert that joke to a Star Wars joke?
Are you going to wear red leather pants?
No. But I think I'm going to take a hint from John, though. So I do want to stand back and have like a brick wall or something like that.
Well,
like
we could make a background. I mean, that was
Yeah.
one of the things I bragged about our episode last night. We all look so good
Yeah.
with that same background behind us. It was wonderful.
Yeah. Well, because then it got me thinking, if we do a good comedy show, when do we do our Star Wars Idol show? Where we're the judge.
Well, it's
Okay.
funny that you mentioned that
right.
because
Randy, Ken is Randy, I'll be Simon, and John will be Paula.
Just because he has the long hair, like
Right.
All right, okay.
yeah, and I'm the fat guy trying to slim down.
So, but that's what I was like. Is that our next step?
Well, we were talking about is the awards idea something that we could do as a panel at a convention?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be as robust as that, but it could be just as dynamic, just as as planned out like that was.
Yeah.
Where we have categories and intros and all of that.
Yeah, that and if especially if you're at a convention and you have the access to a projector or something, you could easily do that, and I think that would be fun for the audience. Because honestly, at most conventions like Steel City and stuff, most people just want somewhere they can sit down. They don't care
for at
who's
least
talking.
30 minutes.
They're like, okay, is he gonna annoy me for 30 minutes or so? Because when we used to do the armor panel at Steel City, you could tell 2/3 of the people sitting there were just happy to be able to sit down.
Yeah, and most of them sit as far back or to the far side as they can. You bet. They bring their lunch in and eat it on their laps.
Oh yeah, they have lunches spread out, or someone's making last minute alterations to some manga costume that none of us have ever seen.
It's a lot of tentacles on one costume.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jesus. Well, this took a turn real quick, didn't it?
But no, it was a fun night. I'm glad it grew into what it grew into.
And I thought we did amazing. We don't have to go back and cut. Like it was smooth.
Yeah. Oh, I was petrified I was going to butcher the readings, man. That's
Nah, I think we did a fantastic job.
Yeah, when Anthony said, like, oh, we can go back and, like, if we need to, just, like, throw up the X and, we can cut here. And we didn't do, I don't think there was a single thing in there that needs to be edited.
No. And I think that was amazing. I mean, that was really good.
And I was telling John, everybody added something. Everybody brought something to the game and made it a remarkable event. I was saying to John that I think that could be the episode that we get traction, that we get folks, whether it's we're hashtagging Daniel Logan or hashtagging Genevieve O'Reilly, and some of them reply back to us.
Well, and you have to see, and you have to fake it till you make it, in the sense you have to ask people, hey, what did you think about the Georgies this year? And don't explain it. Just if they don't know, you say, oh, well, okay, well, maybe I'll talk to you later, or you know what I mean, like just talk to them like they, what, because there's a lot of people that watch the Super Bowl because they just because everyone else does,
Yeah. Ken, what an idea you should lobby to the rest of the forces behind Star Wars crew, the Rad Batch, if you will. In order to gain a little bit of traction, and I don't know how quickly, it would be able to be done. And this might be a next year thing, but to market it a little bit, you should do what the Oscars and like the Golden Globes do, and make just a graphic with if not the categories and the nominees, just like the categories.
Yep.
That way, people know, like, oh, well, here are all the things that you can expect going into the show. I should have had this idea earlier.
Yeah, where was this 2 weeks ago? Come on.
My brain just didn't kick it out. But yeah, that's like Christmas Eve. Do we release the categories for the Georgies?
Well, I was even saying, we should have. This is. I love that we're talking about this. I was saying that we have a one fan category that we have. We release it, 3 weeks or 4 weeks before the episode. We give them amount of time to vote on it, and then we announce that during the Georgie.
And then we have our special, this one is sponsored by the Beskar Bucket. Like the logo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just so you know, John was singing your praises about the Star Wars Geek Girl commercial. You're the only one that listened and did the homework assignment.
Yeah.
Well, Zoe did the commercial. She threw it together for me. I think I need to go, because I contacted Sal and a couple other people. I contacted Matt. I was like, look, I need you know. But that's all that came through.
It came through perfectly because it was right there at the halfway point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
it
think
kept us within that 2-hour mark. If we had more commercials, it would have stretched us out even farther.
I think we need a Beskar Bucket one with the over voice of John and the sign swinging and your bar background in the thing, and then just have one of your recordings with just the discussion, but mid discussion. So it's like you're overhearing what's going on. Or you could pan out from a like a bar window, like an old tavern window, and it would pan to the Beskar Bucket sign swinging. That's what you need. That's your commercial.
Oh, you're giving me way more credit.
Huh?
Could we pan out from the bar scene from the Star Wars holiday special and pan out and you have the Beskar Bucket swinging?
There you go. No, but I'm saying like some of John's conversation. If you overlaid 3 of your episodes in tracks and overlaid some of your bar music and just so it sounds like you're just hearing it coming through the door.
That's not a bad idea. Maybe I need to learn how to work in an animation studio.
Gotta spend time with Steve.
You know, or you could go old fashioned. You know, you just make yourself a nice wooden sign that looks like it,
Or
and
foam.
then just one night at a nice barn or building that has a nice old timey looking door, and just get some light shining through it. Just shoot the light right, tweak it, and do a rainy night so you get some good rain going.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea though. I should make the sign. Just have it hanging above me here.
Well, because you could 3D print some of it.
Yeah.
Or you could make it out of pallets.
Yeah, you can make
That's
everything
true.
out of pallets.
I do have a lot of pallets.
See, this is why we gotta spend more time together, just doing this random rambling that we do, but have it be focused on a project or focused on a whatever.
But I still want John connecting strings from one of your shows.
I thought about it. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, as soon as you posted that, I was like, I should really get the whole Charlie Day and just take a picture.
Well, did you listen to the episode, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's where you should just give John, look, here's the connection points. Tell him ahead of time. Give it, and he puts them on pieces of paper. And then he has to listen to it live and see if he can make all the connections.
It'd be great marketing.
And quite frankly, I didn't have as many connections as I wanted to. And I went back from 2012 to 1955, and I had so many connections that it was like I was mentioning Willow. I was mentioning, some of the animated shows that they did in Pixar and the individual contributions and contributors. Like I had this whole thing that I was going to talk about Kathleen Kennedy and just couldn't get it together so that it made sense. It was really confusing even for me as the rambler to connect all those dots.
I just pictured like the Indiana Jones airplane flying, but you're in a beat up old rambler driving, skidding it back, turning around.
Yeah, and some of those things I did mention in that episode, I am going to have bigger, full-blown ones. Like I can imagine myself talking about Captain EO for an hour, or Star Tours for 90 minutes, because there's the original Star Tours ride, which parts of it showed up in Rian Johnson. No, it was The Last Jedi. Some of that imagery showed up in The Last Jedi, and they updated Star Tours when they went to digital and had the different chains and everything, so that could easily be a 90-minute conversation.
Well, don't give too much of your content away. We still need to give everyone a reason to go listen to the Rambling Star Wars fan.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, Ken, I want to say it, live on the air so everyone hears it. I love what you're doing with your show. I think I think you give a very unique cadence and perspective that just makes listening to everything you're on just so enjoyable.
Oh,
Yes.
I appreciate that.
I have one suggestion. You need to
Sure.
get Sal on as a guest.
Yeah, I would
You
love
and
it.
him are like walking encyclopedias of Star Wars.
Well, what I would have to do with sales, I'd have to have definitely a focus to begin, and then we could launch off, from there.
Yeah. Now, the other thing to bring us back to the Inflatable Falcon, what do you guys think of a game show?
Yes.
Now you've piqued my
Well,
interest.
we had talked about, with the Rad Batch. Maybe it was last year. I was in Ollie's, and they had this book called "Obsessed with Star Wars," and it was probably an inch and a half thick of just quiz questions from the original trilogy and maybe into the prequels, maybe. And I had sent out copies to all the members of the Rad Batch and kept an extra copy beyond the one that was for me. And we had talked about at one point doing a trivia night game show. And Steve's like, "Oh, I'll be the MC."
Oh, good.
Not that I surprised you guys after last night's performance.
Well, I have a friend who has a DJ company, and he does Family Feud. So if you give him questions, then he pulls out the Family Feud, and then gives you the top 10 and he has it digital and everything. And I've always thought, wow, if we could somehow incorporate that, because then you imagine a bunch of like us three against like the Rad Batch, except for Ken, you would have to jump in between both.
Well, what if we did something like that at a con where we had the 501st versus the Mando Mercs, or the Rebel Legion against the 501st?
I was trying to get him to do it at one of our library events, where we would get 501st members in costume against some of the kids, and it didn't. I sent it up the chain, and unfortunately, the command in my garrison, you might as well just. I basically just threw it out the door, But
Hinton? Nope.
But it is election time, so
It is election time.
I nominated Marcus as CEO.
Oh,
Nice.
There you go.
He probably won't take it. I'll probably get a bad. What are you doing to me?
I thought you were my friend.
Mike, I saw you were nominated for LCO.
Yeah, me really?
I
Was I
swear
really?
to God. Go check.
Me?
Yes.
Well, I would never run. First off, I would never be able to do it, but also I love Justin, so
That's fair. That's understandable. I still think you should accept the nomination just to see where it goes.
oh,
Just
God.
just to see.
Well,
Not to
yeah,
ma- it would stir
I
up
think
a
you
little bit.
mislead me if I'm like, I'm going to be on the computer for 7 days answering questions from everyone that make no sense. Have you ever read that? You haven't been to an election yet. Wait till you read the questions.
Well,
It's
some of them,
basically-
at least in the mercs, some of the questions are really digs. Wow, that's really personal.
Yeah.
Like obviously someone pooped in your cornflakes.
Well, ours are like 6 paragraphs long, just because they want to vent everything else, and then they have to stick a question. It really they could have just said like, and what do you think about? What do you like? It could be this big long tirade, and then it'll say, and so what do you think about people carrying blasters in their right hand? You know what I mean? Like what? So.
So based on where we are in the Bad Batch and what we've seen so far, and I know we're not predictors and we usually don't get into forecasting, what do you think's coming? Where do you think we're going to go? Who do you think we're going to see? Where do you think we're going to visit?
Honestly, I have no idea. I think that's the beauty of the Bad Batch. Other than what you see in the trailer, you have no idea what you're gonna get.
Except the last 2 episodes were slightly connected. Because you had the giant robot, and they had those stones they were burning on purpose. And the stone markings, at least from what I saw, just watching it while I was eating dinner, they kind of look like the lines in that temple.
And do you think that's connected back to the High Republic stuff?
Don't know, but the Trandoshans they really wanted them burn up. So it could be nothing, or because Filoni likes that, like metaphysical stuff too. You know, so there could be something there too, similar to the tree guy from Rebels, the wind, or what was his name?
The Bendu.
Bindu. Like, you would have never saw that coming. Like, that was like, you're like, what? I know, you know.
Well, they brought time travel
Yeah,
into Star
So,
Wars.
you know, but I think it's good. I like that we don't know. I mean, I picture the storyline reminds me of Fortnite in the sense that the circle's getting smaller. For those that have played Fortnite at all, but you know, like they're the Bad Batch's places to run is getting smaller, and you know what I mean. They're becoming more and more kind of lassoed into where they have to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
Go ahead, John.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that John and I had a conversation about Hunter and Echo, and their relationship and how it's developed. Have you picked up anything about those two characters specifically, or?
Well, yeah, they seem to have paired them off more than I would have thought, and I'm not 100% sure why. The one thing I did notice, just in general though, I feel like Wrecker, they've made less dumb. You know, like, because like in that first mission, like he seemed way more competent than he was in season 1. You know, so I don't know if they're setting them up to split them up. You know, or they're setting us up to lose one, and one has to have. You know, I don't know where because I wonder if Echo is going to have to make a choice, because he's not really a Bad Batcher.
Well, he's a reg.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I wonder, because he seems drawn into more concerned about the overall everybody, where Hunter is more focused on the children and his small world. So it does seem, you know, but
Yeah, I think I agree with you on Wrecker, and here's a thought that I will throw out for the crowd. Do you think that that could have been part of the inhibitor chip? Could be making him dumb, so you know his only thoughts were, all right, I'm gonna blow this up, I'm gonna kill this, because they made him the brute of the group.
yeah, it could be.
Could be, and this is gonna sound wild at first, but follow me down the path. So all of these characters at some point in time have had their individual moments with Omega. And so maybe because Wrecker has had to explain things to Omega or guide her or protect her, that action has given Wrecker an opportunity that he wouldn't have normally had if he was just a big brute, just a big tank who is to blow things up and to cause havoc. He had to change his approach for Omega, and Omega has had to learn from and quite possibly teach him how to teach her, if that makes any sense. So he's had to wisen up and has had to grow, because dealing with Omega is not like dealing with a battle, dealing with an enemy. So he's had to modify his approach to help her, and she in turn helped him.
And to piggyback on that, it also could be, too, when they were fighting, you know, as the Bad Batch, they were basically treated, you kind of act how you're treated. If every time they show up, they're like, okay, Wrecker, you're going to run through that wall, and because they all seem to be losing their sharp edges in a good way.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, which really brings up the idea of what happens when you have to raise children.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we don't dress the same, we don't buy the same things, we don't spend as much time doing. We have to, as adults who take on that responsibility of raising another human being, our edges do get softened, or at least the ones who take that role seriously.
Yep.
From the perspective of they want to deliberately help this tiny human grow up to be a successful bigger human.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for Hunter to get his cargo shorts and New Balances.
His plaid shirt.
Yep.
And blue jeans.
Big long beard, but short haircut.
Date Linda Ronstadt.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the same reason why I like the Book of Boba Fett, in the sense that they're trying to make what is as wonderful as the Star Wars was in the past. A lot of the characters were very two-dimensional. You know, I mean, like Lucas was, even when he made planets, like Tatooine's a desert planet. Like it was just one biome. You know, which was fine. It was that Flash Gordon. You know, like you had the planet of the bird people and the planet of this people, and so it's really cool. But for the longevity of it, we want different things now. You know, the audience expects more from that. We look, you know, no one would have thought 40 years ago we would be sitting here talking about Star Wars on a Wednesday night.
Right. Almost religiously for almost an entire year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that they themselves have been willing to go back to those places, and even though at first they were singular or two-dimensional, and to make them more full, to make them more complete.
Yep.
You know, whether we're developing, you know, if we talk about Tatooine specifically, where we're developing the Tuskens into more than they were, or develop those cities into more than they were. It's fantastic, and I think we're very in a very lucky time and place to be able to witness all of this.
Yeah.
Where do you think Rex is going to show up? Because we've seen him in the trailer, but we haven't seen him yet.
I don't know. I got to go back and rethink all the names now. You know what I mean? Because they've kind of threw me for a loop. So, but I mean, you know, we have Cody that has to show up too. You know. And is Cody going to make like a sacrifice? Is he going to be one of the, you know, So there's still a lot. There's still a lot that can happen. And we're not told that this is the last season, right?
No, John and I have asked for at least 3 more.
Oh, okay, good. So,
yeah, and just real quick, I would like to point something out. Even though we are doing an episode of the Beskar Bucket, I would like to share this with you. This date right here, we are coming up on our 1-year anniversary.
oh man,
And you're wearing the same shirt, Mike.
look, I'm wearing wearing the same shirt.
So, I just that crossed my mind, and I was like, huh, I wonder what is the 1-year anniversary. So,
It'd be really cool if it would have been February 7th. That would have been really cool.
that would be ironic, wouldn't it?
I think on our episode that we get together for that week, we should make a commitment to wear the same shirts.
Yeah. I'll change my shelving so it looks exactly the same.
We're gonna have that same like rainbow background with the Star Wars Geek Girl logo at the bottom.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh, the many funny things that have come out of that.
Look how far we've come.
Right. I am, however, going to cut out early though, because I have only been home for like an hour and I have to actually go do schoolwork. So
No worries. I think that would be a great place to end this episode.
yeah.
So, gentlemen, where can everyone find you?
Mike?
Star Wars Geek Girl, StarWarsGeekGirl.com. Find Zoe, and I am the Hinton Star Wars family. Is that what it is? I don't know. On just look up Hinton and family and Star Wars on TikTok or Instagram, or Mike Hinton on Facebook. That's where you can find me.
Well, and the Inflatable Falcon, that's for sure.
Oh yes, and the Inflatable Falcon.
Of course.
Every Wednesday.
Bouncing around the galaxy.
Almost every Wednesday.
And you can find me, Ken, on a couple other places other than the Inflatable Falcon. Historically on Wednesday nights, I'm a co-host of the Forces Behind Star Wars with other members of the Rad Batch, and the newest show that I've put out there for the world to hear is The Rambling Star Wars Fan. And next week I'll be launching our episode where I'll be talking about my 40 favorite things about Return of the Jedi, and I have at least 6 or 7 other favorites that people have sent to me that I'll be mentioning during the show. So that'll be my contribution to Star Wars Podcast Day on February 7th.
Right. Well, and obviously you know where to find me right here at the Beskar Bucket. The Beskar Bucket podcast on Instagram, and then my first and last name, John Scalise, on TikTok. But gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. I'm sorry I kind of stole a Wednesday night from the Inflatable
That's
Falcon.
great. I'm glad you could.
So, hope to have everyone back for Star Wars Podcast Day. All of our listeners here, and gentlemen, I will catch up with you next time. Thank you for joining us on the Beskar Bucket.